The peso was a coin that originated in Spain and became of immense importance internationally. Peso is now the name of the monetary unit of several former Spanish colonies. Origin and history. 1537 to 1686. Piece of 8 peso was a name given in Spain and particularly in Hispanic America to the 8 royal coin a real de ocho, a large silver coin of the type commonly known as a thala in Europe. It had a legal weight of 27.468 grams and a millesimal fineness of 930.5. This real de ocho peso was minted in Spain from the mid-16th century, and even more prolifically in Spanish America, in the mints of Mexico and Peru. It was originally known as the piece of 8 in English, due to the nominal value of 8 reals. The piece of 8 became a coin of worldwide importance in the 17th century, especially in trade with India and the Far East, where it was immediately melted down. At this time, the piece of 8 was produced in Mexico and Peru in a rapid and simplified manner. Instead of making a proper flan or planche, a lump of silver of proper weight and fineness was cut off the end of a silver bar, then flattened out and impressed by a hammer. The result was a crude, temporary coin, an irregular lump of silver. This type of coin became known as a cob in English, or a macaquina in Spanish. The crown was entitled to a fifth of all gold and silver mined, the quinto real, and cobs were a convenient means of handling and accounting for silver. Although intended to serve only temporarily, some did remain in circulation as currency. Because of their irregular shape and incomplete design, cobs were ideal candidates for clipping and counterfeiting. This coin was originally known in English as a piece of 8, then as a Spanish dollar, and then as a Mexican dollar. In French, it was a piastre, and in Portuguese, a paticao or paticao. The Spanish names at various times and in various places were patecan, duro, or fuerte. 1686 Spanish currency reform. Because of domestic financial and monetary problems, Spain devalued its silver currency by about 20% on October 14, 1686, introducing a new 8 real coin weighing only 21.912 grams. Because of the importance of the piece of 8 in international trade, this new silver coin was intended only for circulation in Spain itself, and the older and heavier 8 real coin continued to be minted. The new 8 real was known as a peso maria or peso sansolo, and the new standard was called plata nueva, usually called new plate in English. After this, the monetary systems of Spain and of Spanish America developed along different lines. Accounts in Spain were kept in the copper real of 34 maravedis, while in Spanish America accounts continued in the silver real and eventually in pesos of 8 reals. 1686 to 1821 peso in North America. After 1686, the old piece of 8 remained the standard coin in the Spanish colonies, because the piece of 8 had the same intrinsic value as the thala coins familiar to English colonists in North America. It was being called a Spanish dollar by the end of the 17th century, and the older term piece of 8 gradually fell into disuse. Spanish laws of 1728 and 1730 adopted modern minting techniques. Coins were to be minted with technologically advanced equipment so that they would be perfectly round and have milled edges. There was a simultaneous reduction in weight and fineness, the peso becoming 27.064 grams, 0.9162 fine. This is the coin that became known in the British colonies as the Spanish milled dollar. When Charles III of Spain adopted new coinage designs in 1772, he also reduced the fineness of the peso from 0.9166 to 0.9028. The fineness was again reduced in 1786 to 0.875. 1686 to 1868 peseta in Spain. During the War of the Spanish Succession, the French introduced a coin worth 2 reals. It was called a peseta in Spanish, and soon the name was given to the Spanish 2-real coin as well. In 1717 the mints at Madrid, Segovia, Cuenca, and Seville flooded the country with debased silver coin. These coins were designated plata provincial to distinguish them from the older, heavy, silver still minted in America, now called plata nacional. The old 8-real coin now became known in Spain as a peso duro, or simply a duro, and was rated 10 reals. By 1728, the role of the old peso was assumed in Spain by the new 2-real coin, now called a peseta. 1 peso duro, worth 10 reals, was equal to 5 of the new peseta coins, each weighing 5.876 grams and containing 4.938 grams fine silver. The fine silver content of the peseta was reduced to 4.855 grams in 1772, then to 4.793 grams in 1786. During the French occupation, Joseph Bonaparte issued a 20 reals piece a piastre, actually a duro, a peso of the 1772 standard, and gave it a value of 20 reals. The peseta became a 4-real coin. The peso, duro and peseta were retained in the monetary reform of 1821. Spain adopted the French bimetallic standard on January 1, 1859, with the peseta equal to 4.500 grams fine silver, 290.322 milligrams fine gold. This standard was replaced by a law of June 26, 1864, only to be restored on October 19, 1868, when the Latin monetary union system was formally adopted. This resulted in the peseta weighing 5.000 grams, 0.835 fine, and a duro, a 5 peseta piece weighing 25.000 grams, 0.900 fine. 1821 to 1897 Mexican dollar. The successful revolt of the Spanish colonies in America had cut off the supply of silver coin by 1820. By 1825, the Spanish dollar, the universal coin of 3 centuries, had lost its supremacy, and its universal dominion was in process of disintegration into rival currency areas, chief among which was destined to be the area dominated by British sterling. But the Spanish dollar continued to dominate the Eastern trade, and the peso of 8 reals continued to be minted in the New World. The coin was sometimes called a Republican dollar, but eventually any peso of the old Spanish 8-real standard was generally referred to as a Mexican dollar. Mexico being the most prolific producer, Mexico restored the standard of 1772, producing a coin of 27.073 grams, 0.9028 fine, containing 24.441 grams fine silver. In 1869 to 1870, not long after adopting the metric system, Mexican mints began producing the peso of un-peso denomination, popularly known as balanza, with the same weight and fineness, but with a uniform diameter of 37 millimeters. Chinese merchants rejected the new coin, discounting it 4% to 5% in favor of the old 8-real peso. Faced with this threat to her silver exports, Mexico returned to the old 8-real peso by decree of May 29, 1873. But international trade was already shifting from silver to gold, and after 1873 there was a steady decline in the international price of silver. Prior to 1873, the Mexican dollar would have been to all intents and purposes equal in value to the silver dollar coins of the United States north of the border. But at the time in history, the Mexican coin would have had a much greater international notoriety than that of the U. dollar. The Great Silver Devaluation of 1873 caused the Mexican dollar to drop in value against the U.S. dollar, but up until the beginning of the 20th century, the Mexican dollar would still have been a more widely accepted coin in the Far East than the U.S. dollar. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, Mexico produced well over 3 billion of these coins. Mexico minted the last 8 real peso in 1897, and at the beginning of the 20th century, these Mexican dollar coins were worth only 50 cents in relation to the U.S. dollar. Philippine peso. The Philippine peso is derived from the Spanish silver coin Real de 8, a Spanish dollar, in wide circulation in the Americas and Southeast Asia during the 17th and 18th centuries. Through its use in the Spanish colonies and even in the United States and Canada, the Philippine peso was established on the 1st of May 1852, when the Banco Español Filipino de Isabel II introduced notes denominated in pesos fuertes, until the 17th of October 1854, when a royal decree confirmed the bylaws of the Banco Español Filipino. The notes were in limited circulation and were usually used for bank transactions. The peso replaced the real at a rate of 8 reals equals 1 peso. Until 1886, the peso circulated alongside Mexican coins, some of which were still denominated in reals and escudos. Coin production commenced in 1861, and in 1864, the Philippines decimalized, dividing the peso into 100 centimos de peso, with the peso equal to 226/7 grains of gold. In 1886, Philippine colonial authorities began gradually phasing out all Mexican coins in circulation in the islands, citing that Mexican coins were by then of lesser value than coins produced in Manila. As with Mexican dollars, the Philippine unit was based on silver, unlike the United States and Canada where a gold standard operated. Thus, following the Great Silver Devaluation of 1873, the Philippine peso devalued in parallel with the Mexican unit, and by the end of the 19th century, was worth half a United States dollar. The name of the currency remained unchanged despite the 1896 Philippine Revolution and the subsequent declaration of independence in 1898. Countries that use the peso